Translator, Dark Angel. Editor, Kurisu. On the road back to Extreme Yang City, Linghan shed his disguise. Thus, by the time he stepped into Extreme Yang City, he had naturally reclaimed his identity as the master behind Forget Not and the Alchemist King Pavilion. He had vanished for 10 days, and Liu Yutong and the others had all been deeply anxious. Fortunately, he had finally returned, and only then were their hearts set at ease. Linghan went once more to the Spirit Treasures Pavilion, thinking that Yin Hong should have already succeeded in obtaining the 9-leaf black Ganoderma for him by now, right? I'm really sorry. The instant Yin Hong saw him, she hurriedly offered an apology, making Linghan's heart sink with an ominous premonition. Sure enough, he heard her continue. That spirit herb you wanted has been intercepted by someone else. Who did it? Linghan's killing intent surged violently. This spirit herb concerned the crucial matter of whether Ling Dongxing could cultivate again, and for this, he would not hesitate to kill. The particulars are not yet fully clear. They only said they sold it to someone with the surname Tang, and coincidentally, according to my investigation, he has also arrived in Extreme Yang City and is presently at the North Pill Pavilion, Yin Hong said. I'm really sorry. I had already reached an agreement with the seller, but this Tang fellow should have an exceptionally prominent background. That must be why the seller did not hesitate to offend me and still insisted on selling the spirit herb to another. I had intended to communicate with this Tang person and see whether he would be willing to resell it to me. However, before I even started that discussion, you had already rushed here. Yin Hong continued. Ling Han nodded and said, Still, thank you. At the very least, he now knew the general location of the 9-leaf black Ganoderma. You must be careful. This man was able to make the seller refuse to give me face. Either he possesses astonishing ability and skill, or his background is terrifyingly prominent, Yin Hong said solemnly. I know. Ling Han rose and departed. As Yin Hong watched Ling Han's figure gradually fade from sight at the courtyard's main doors, she could not help but prop up her chin and murmur, That's strange. Is there any great person by the surname of Tang in the North region? Ling Han went straight to the North Pill Pavilion. Though he was already an Earth-grade alchemist and had remained in Extreme Yang City for many days, he had not truly come here often. At most, he had come to choose and purchase some spirit herb seeds to enrich the space within the Black Tower. He asked the staff within the Pill Pavilion about that person surnamed Tang. Yet every single one merely shook their heads, indicating they did not know either. Recalling that this Tang person might come from an extremely prominent background, and that it was likely normal for these lower-ranking people to be unaware of him, Ling Han decided to seek out someone of higher rank to inquire. But how could an ordinary person enter the important areas of the North Pill Pavilion? He was just about to reveal his identity as an Earth-grade alchemist when he saw 3 people walk in from outside. 2 walked slightly ahead, while the third followed a bit behind. One of the 2 in front wore a simple yet elegant white robe, her glossy black hair like flowing silk, and a white gauze veil obscuring her face. Though there might be countless women in the world dressed in such a manner, there was only one whose mere indistinct silhouette could make one's imagination run wild. Zhu By her side stood a young man who looked to be in his mid-20s, and he was at the 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier. A man with such a cultivation level could be considered among the foremost elite prodigies in Extreme Yang City, yet behind the 2 of them followed an elite cultivator of the flower blossom tier. His expression was exceedingly grave as he kept close behind them. Judging from his attitude, this elite flower blossom tier cultivator actually seemed to be the servant of the 2 people walking ahead. Ling Han knew Zhu definitely would not have such extravagance. Then, that flower blossom tier elite cultivator had to be the subordinate of that young man. However, even for the Winter Moon sect and the Beast Emperor sect, what sect could allow its disciple to use a flower blossom tier cultivator as a mere bodyguard cum servant? Flower blossom tier cultivators were absolutely a pillar supporting any sect, and it was highly possible that such a person could become a supreme elite of the spiritual infant tier. This young man clearly came from an astonishingly prominent background. Recalling what Yin Hong had said before, Ling Han was practically certain that this young man was that person surnamed Tang. Grandmaster Ling. When Zhu Xuan'er saw Ling Han, it was as if she had seen her savior. Her beautiful eyes immediately brightened, and she walked gracefully over. If you have time, Xuan'er has something I would like Grandmaster Ling to help with. Grandmaster? When the young man heard that form of address, disdain flashed across his face as he said, Xuan'er, if you wish to learn alchemy, you may ask me as much as you like. As a black-grade high-level alchemist, I naturally can answer all your questions. This young man was actually a black-grade high-level alchemist? Tsk, tsk. That was truly outstanding. No wonder he was so arrogant. However, if he were merely a black-grade high-level alchemist, he likely still was not qualified to have a flower blossom tier elite cultivator serve as his guard, right? Ling Han turned toward the young man and asked, "And who are you?" "How dare you, speaking to young Master Tang in such a tone?" That flower blossom tier elite cultivator immediately rebuked him in anger, his gaze sharp and piercing, brimming with killing intent. For a flower blossom tier cultivator who had already cast off the mortal shell, an angry rebuke accompanied by a fierce glare naturally carried immense power, enough to make a spiritual pedestal tier cultivator drop to their knees in fright. It was, of course, a deliberate move on his part. His young master was currently pursuing Zhu Xuan'er, yet from the situation now, Zhu Xuan'er seemed to harbor affection for Ling Han. Then naturally, he had to thoroughly embarrass the latter before Zhu Xuan'er and humiliate him in front of her. But who was Ling Han? He still possessed a sliver of divine sense from the heaven tier, and furthermore was a ruler who had formed 9 flashes of qi. How could he be suppressed by another's imposing manner? He merely picked at his ear and said, "Why are you shouting so vigorously? If your own ears don't work, do you think everyone else is deaf as well?" Insolence! The flower blossom tier cultivator flew into a violent rage at those words. A mere spiritual pedestal tier cultivator actually dared act insolently before him. Had he no understanding of the hierarchy of martial arts? How could that possibly be tolerated? Zhu Xuan'er hurriedly stopped them and said with utmost seriousness, "This Ling Han, Grandmaster Ling, is an earth-grade low-level alchemist." What? That flower blossom tier cultivator's eyes instantly widened. No matter how he looked, Ling Han was only around 18 or 19 years old, yet he was already an earth-grade alchemist? One had to know that even a genius like young Master Tang was only a black-grade high-level alchemist. Though the difference between black-grade high-level and earth-grade low-level was only a single level, that single level was a chasm that could make one despair for an entire lifetime, a barrier one could never hope to cross. So what if you are an earth-grade alchemist? The young man merely sneered coldly. In front of me, even an earth-grade high-level alchemist is not enough. Brat, get out of here immediately. Otherwise, I will have you die. Ling Han did not get angry. Instead, he smiled and asked calmly, "I don't think I've offended you in any way, have I?" "You spoke to Xuan'er without my permission. That is your sin," the young man said coldly. Yet Zhu Xuan'er was irritated and asked, "What does it have to do with you who I speak to?" "Of course it has to do with me." The young man chuckled lightly. "I've taken a fancy to you. Since you're my woman, naturally no other man is allowed to speak to you. If they do, then they're simply seeking death." "Don't you speak nonsense?" Zhu Xuan'er rebuked furiously. However, the young man only laughed loudly and said, "I heard that Yao Huiwei also has his eye on you. And because I heard that, I deliberately raced all the way here from the Middle State. I wanted to see for myself what kind of peerless beauty could move the heart of that sword maniac. That bastard is always against me, and though I can't compare to him in martial arts, I can snatch away the woman he admires. Ha! I truly want to see the look on his face when he finds out." "Dream on," Zhu Xuan'er snorted icily. "Is that so?" A contemplative smile curled at the young man's lips. "Didn't you want to concoct a heaven-grade alchemical pill? There are only 2 heaven-grade alchemists in the whole Middle State, and one of them is my great-grandfather. On what basis do you intend to have a heaven-grade alchemist concoct alchemical pills for you?" Our Tang clan has concocted alchemical pills for generation after generation, and the wealth we have accumulated over the years is terrifying beyond measure. So what bargaining chip can you offer that would make my great-grandfather interested? Unless you become my woman, and I will beg my great-grandfather to concoct an alchemical pill on your behalf. Translator, Dark Angel. Editor, Kurisu. The Tang surname and an aristocratic clan of alchemists? Ling Han was faintly taken aback. At first, he hadn't paid much heed to the Tang surname, yet the moment he heard an aristocratic clan of alchemists, his heart stirred slightly. He asked, "Is there someone called Tang Shuyuan in your family line?" "What, Tang Shuyuan?" The young man first gave a cold snort, but then astonishment instantly surged across his face, and he blurted, "How did you know the name of my clan's founder?" It really is him, Ling Han thought. In his previous life, he had taken a total of 4 disciples. 2 followed him in martial arts, while the other 2 learned alchemy. Of those 2 alchemy disciples, one was named Yunyong Wang, and the other was called Tang Shuyuan. This was a descendant of one of his disciples. This was truly deceiving one's master and wiping out one's own ancestor. Ling Han snorted and said, "That is not something you should concern yourself with. For your ancestor's sake, kneel and apologize, then hand the 9-leaf black Ganoderma over, and I will not stoop to your level to call you to account." "How dare you?" The young man was so furious, his nose twisted out of shape. "I, Tang Zuming, am already plenty arrogant, but compared with you, I find I'm actually rather modest. Gao Feng, kill him!" Those final words were aimed at the flower blossom tier elite cultivator behind him. This man bore the surname Zuo with the given name Gao Feng. Naturally, there was no lack of powerful cultivators willing to follow a heaven-grade alchemist. If not for the barrier separating the middle state and the north region, he would certainly have brought along a deity transformation tier ultimate elite cultivator who could sweep aside all opposition throughout the entire north region single-handedly. How glorious would that be? Young Master Tang, this person is an earth-grade alchemist. Zhuo Gaofeng hesitated slightly. In this world, there were only 2 heaven-grade alchemists, and thus, earth-grade alchemists were already exceedingly impressive. What's more, Ling Han was still so young. Who knew whether in the future he might become a great boss of alchemy, whose mighty reputation could suppress the whole world? What are you afraid of? My great-grandfather is a heaven-grade alchemist, Tang Zuming declared with arrogant swagger. Zhuo Gaofeng hesitated no more. A heaven-grade alchemist was the most awe-inspiring existence in this world, able to stand on equal footing with shattering void-tier cultivators, and could be called the leader among all alchemists. In that case, so what if he killed an earth-grade alchemist? He wouldn't need to request any other alchemist to concoct pills for him, and there was absolutely no need to take anyone else into consideration. Die! He immediately struck, sending an attack straight at Ling Han. Stop! Zhu Xuan was utterly shocked. She had originally intended to speak with Ling Han on purpose and put on a facade of intimacy between the two of them so that Tang Zuming would leave of his own accord. She had never expected Tang Zuming to truly be the classic profligate young master, arrogant and unreasonable, to the point of actually trying to have Ling Han killed. This trouble had arisen because of her, and she instantly sprang out to stand between Ling Han and Zhuo Gaofeng. However, before a flower blossom tier cultivator, what use was her meager strength? Zhuo Gaofeng merely crooked a finger slightly, and Zhu Xuan was gently pushed aside, her cultivation also sealed. Meanwhile, Zhuo Gaofeng's strike continued onward with practically no obstruction, rushing toward Ling Han. Peng! Ling Han was blasted away in an instant. He actually tore a hole through 7 consecutive walls as he flew before finally coming to a stop. Not dead yet? Zhuo Gaofeng looked startled. Right before his attack's power struck, this brat had actually produced a defensive armor that radiated Thunder's divine light. And it was precisely that which blocked most of the blow. And it was exactly because of this that Ling Han was only flung away, possibly with a few broken bones, spitting out several mouthfuls of blood, yet stubbornly not dead. This was unbelievably shocking. A grand flower blossom tier elite moved, and yet could not kill a mere junior of the spiritual pedestal tier with a single strike. "Who dares make trouble in our North Pill Pavilion?" A cold snort rang out. Earlier, Ling Han and the rest were only locked in a battle of words, and the North Pill Pavilion naturally wouldn't bother with it. But now that they had come to blows and even damaged the Pill Pavilion, this of course drew out the elite cultivators within the North Pill Pavilion. "Young Master Tang?" Zhuo Gaofeng turned around, looking at Tang Zuming in inquiry. "Continue," Tang Zuming ordered icily, then shouted loudly, "I am Tang Zuming, and my great-grandfather is a heaven-grade alchemist from the Middle State, Grandmaster Tang Zishi. Whoever dares interfere will be standing against our Tang clan." He produced a token. Ordinary people naturally wouldn't recognize it, but every Earth-grade alchemist would be intimately familiar with it. It was indeed a token belonging to Grandmaster Tang Zishi. All at once, it was as if every powerful cultivator in the North Pill Pavilion had been frozen in place. In fact, no one dared utter another word, much less step out to make a move and stop them. Tang Zishi, Grandmaster Tang, he was one of the two great pillars supporting the Alchemist Society. To the alchemists of the Alchemist Society or the martial artists, he was a god standing lofty upon a pedestal, one they could only kneel before and gaze up at in reverence. Peng! 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 Zhuo Gaofeng continued his pursuit of Ling Han with immense satisfaction, feeling extraordinarily pleased with himself. Though he was at the flower blossom tier, in the middle state he definitely wasn't considered one of the top elite cultivators. At most, he could only be counted among the stronger ones. But here, he was unquestionably a top-tier expert. Furthermore, with the golden badge of protection from a heaven-grade alchemist shielding him, absolutely no one dared stop him. In the North region, he could act however he pleased. This sensation brought him tremendous delight. Zhu Xuan-Er's cultivation was sealed, but that did not prevent her from speaking. She shouted loudly, "The one being pursued is Ling Han, Grandmaster Ling, an Earth-grade low-level alchemist." What? This time, quite a number of those who had chosen silence began to waver. With a heaven-grade alchemist as backing, you, Zhuo Gaofeng, could commit a crime, and they would have no choice but to endure it. But if you wanted to kill an alchemist, then the meaning was completely different. Why was the Alchemist Society established? It was precisely to protect the rights and benefits of alchemists, to form a colossal alliance that would make no martial artist dare treat them lightly. And it was exactly for this reason that alchemists held a detached status above others. But to chase and attempt to kill an alchemist within the Alchemist Society, what kind of outrageous matter was that? If it were Tang Zishi personally taking action, then naturally no one would dare persuade him otherwise. But now, a mere flower blossom tier cultivator dared attempt to kill an alchemist. What's more, an Earth-grade alchemist? This naturally stirred public indignation. Today, you could attempt to kill Ling Han. Then tomorrow, wouldn't you be able to attempt to kill me as well? Immediately, a terrifying aura spread out, forcefully suppressing Zhuo Gaofeng. The one who acted was a consecrated person of the North Pill Pavilion. He was an elite cultivator of the spiritual infant tier and bore the surname Shi. Few knew his real name. Others all addressed him as Elder Shi. "You dare! You dare!" Tang Zuming erupted in thunderous rage. "You actually dare stop me from killing the one I want to kill. Are you not afraid I'll fly into a rage and demolish this place in my fury?" Ling Han strode back. His face brimming with anger, he had seen no shortage of profligate, spoiled young masters, but to be willful to such an extreme, Tang Zuming should be the only one. Just because his ancestor was a heaven-grade alchemist, he was actually arrogant to such a ridiculous level. "Heng, the North Pill Pavilion is not a place for you to do as you please. Get lost," Elder Shi snorted coldly. Tang Zuming's eyes shifted, and he suddenly said, "Old man, you've been stuck at the spiritual infant tier for many years already, haven't you? Let me guess. First, you don't have a level 8 martial arts technique. Second, your strength isn't enough to accumulate sufficient power, and thus you can't batter through the barrier into the deity transformation tier. However, if you help me kill this brat, I can gift you a level 8 martial arts technique, as well as a Heaven's Heart Void pill to help you solidify your foundations and bank up your origin power, accumulating enough energy to break through." "What?" Elder Shi instantly cried out, his voice trembling. His interest had been stirred.